Hello, Player One. Welcome to the Gaming History Club. My name is Gabby.
Hello, and I'm JP. Today we are digging into the roots of gaming, to some of the oldest discovered games to be played by humans. So let's honor our ancestors by putting down the gamepads and playing some real games. So before we jump straight into humanity's first moves, we first have some very modern news to share with everyone.
Yeah, that's true. We promised to announce the winner of our SNES giveaway, right? So, first of all, a huge congratulations to Jordan,
Yes,
the winner of
congratulations, Jordan.
the winner of our giveaway. Yep.
Yeah, Jordan's been trying to convince his girlfriend Chelsea that retro games aren't just old, they can actually be fun as well.
Yeah, but you know what? Honestly, Chelsea, we agree. Retro can look a little crusty sometimes, but come on, Super Mario World, it's timeless, isn't it?
And you get to enjoy it with the original hardware, just pimped up a little bit, like a Pimp My SNES kind of a deal.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
That's probably trademarked, by the way. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have to cut this out later, Gabby. Or
Probably
not.
not.
Haha. So yeah, we hope you enjoyed this region unlocked SNES. I hope it helps win Chelsea over, Jordan, into enjoying the magic that is old school retro gaming. Or at the very least, perhaps it sparks a heated Street Fighter 2 game between you two.
Yeah, but just don't spam Hadoukens, Jordan, because I don't think that's romantic.
That is not romantic, not at all. Yeah, so Jordan and Chelsea, you guys actually sent us a voice message to say hi. So let's have a quick listen.
We are super excited to have won this Super Nintendo. Say hi.
Hi.
Love that. And while we're giving out kudos.
Yeah, let me just brush off my shoulder, because we also want to shout out ourselves. This is our 50th episode, right, Gabby?
Yes, and the podcast is turning 2 years old soon as well. So, whoop whoop.
It feels like we've covered so many topics and so much has happened since we've started Gaming History Club.
That's true. We even run giveaway, got to interview the Angry Video Game Nerd, which still feels unreal.
It does feel very Unreal Engine, doesn't it?
Isn't that good, actually?
It's great, honestly. It's like definitely a milestone highlight for me as well.
Yeah.
Interviewing James, definitely. So yeah, whether you've been listening from the start or if you've just joined us recently, thank you very much for listening to us. And we hope that you enjoy our 50th episode.
Yeah, and we genuinely love hearing from you, Player One. And with all that out of the way, let's talk ancient games.
So, of course, it's definition time here at Gaming History Club. So, before we start playing archaeologist, let us ask, what even is a game? Well, a game at its very simplest is structured play. It has rules, goals, and, well, usually someone's trying to win, or at the very least, not lose.
Yeah, so it's more than just fun, it's play with a system, something you can repeat, teach, or compete in.
That's it exactly. Structured play. Exactly. Even the oldest examples, and some of these are thousands of years old, they have boards, pieces, and they have repeating patterns. That structure is what makes them games and not just toys or storytelling rituals that our ancestors had.
But yeah, during the research, you also said that games are also related to sports. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I thought that was probably a little bit out of the blue, but something worth mentioning because, well, sports are obviously a type of game, but they put more emphasis on the physical effort, the physical skill, and kind of athletic competition. So all sports are games, but not all games are sports. So we just want to get that out of the way. So we're not going to be, covering games like sprinting and seeing who can finish faster, if that makes sense. But the line gets blurry fast, of course, because, well, just look at esports and speedrunning as well. But back to games. So where do they come from and what purpose do they serve? Well, to answer that, let's rewind to what came before gaming, playing.
So, play isn't just for kids today. Many mammals, especially primates, they do play fight, chase, or solve puzzles.
Yeah, play serves as a real evolutionary function. You're developing coordination, you're hunting skills. It also involves social bonding, stress regulation, problem solving, even risk assessments.
What do you mean by risk assessment, actually?
Well, so have you ever like seen a cat like look at its obstacle that's trying to jump onto and it's wiggling its butt like, can I make this jump? It's not doing like a health and safety form, but it is calculating risk.
Oh, right. Okay. So that's actually included as like play in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the evolutionary advantages you get
Okay,
out of
okay.
playing. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Um, and well, we were no different. Humans were no different. Prehistoric children likely played some hunting games, mimicking the adults and what they were doing. And they used their imagination a lot of the time, something uniquely human. So we were pretending rocks were horses or sticks were spears. And that early play laid the groundwork for structured games.
But play didn't stop at imagination, it evolved with human intellect as well.
Yeah, so as we developed abstract thought and language, play became more of like a symbolic thing. So rules emerged, like taking turns, ways of recording scores, and designating different roles to different players. So that is very much like abstract thinking and thinking in symbols. We weren't just running around anymore. Now we had you're it, safe zones, and boundaries. We had rules now.
Yeah, and here's the key ancient games weren't just entertainment, they were deeply embedded in the culture of day to day life. Games were used in rituals, for storytelling, for reflecting on fate, choices, and the cycle of nature. They were even used to predict the future. And we'll see examples of that in the ancient games we're covering today.
And some historians even go as far as to claim that games were a necessary thing to have for the creation of human cultures to be in the first place. And this is because, well, without a culture, there is no society. Culture comes first. But for games to exist that help to form a culture, humans only needed to develop a way of playing games, but with rules to make them games.
Yeah, but that might be something we'll cover some other time. So now let's have a look at some ancient games.
Woo, let's start. So, how about we start off with Mancala? And not because it is the oldest game, but because it's often called the oldest.
Yeah, I think historians and archaeologists debate this. Basically, it's definitely ancient, but likely not the absolute oldest. Some other games have stronger evidence for their age.
So, let's talk about gameplay. Mancala isn't just one game, though, it's actually a whole family of games. There's many different variants, and each have different rules, strategies, and also cultural spins, but they all share the same basic structure.
Yeah, so it's played by two people on a board with rows of small pits, usually 12 in total, 6 on each side. Though, really, you can scratch pits into dirt and use seeds or stones, like anything.
Yeah, of course. You basically just needed some pits. The board itself didn't really matter, basically. That's all we're saying. So each pit starts with a number of seeds inside of them, and players take turns picking up all the seeds in one pit and then dropping them one by one into the next pits, usually in a set direction. And I hope it's clockwise because that feels right.
So, depending on where your last seeds land, you might capture some of your opponent's seeds. The goal is usually to collect the most seeds or sometimes to clear your side of the board first.
Yeah, so Mancala is simple enough. You got seeds and holds. The gameplay is quite straightforward, but don't forget there's actually many different variants. But there's some pits and then there's some seeds. The simplicity of this game, this is why archaeologists sometimes assume it must have been played anywhere that we find some kind of pit or pit boards on a board, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why it makes it really difficult to predict like how old this thing actually is. For example, like the limestone board found in Ain Ghazal, Jordan, that one was dated to around 6000 BC. It looks like Mankawa, but there were no pieces, no inscriptions, no art, just holes. Basically, like ancient ice cube tray. You can imagine it that way.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue. It's all a little bit of speculation when we look at the oldest examples of Mancala. It could be a different game sometimes, even, so it can be confused with the Roman game of 5 lines. And sometimes those, yeah, Mancala boards that we think might be Mancala boards, maybe there's something functional, not even game related. Perhaps they even were real ancient ice cube trays. Who knows?
Yeah, Who knows? But we do have like more reliable evidence though. According to the Savannah African Art Museum, comes from 700 AD in East Africa. So as you can see here, like something predicted to be 6000 BC, but actually the more reliable evidence actually comes from 700 AD. Like that's a huge timeline, to be honest. But yeah, so Mancala boards were found in Aksumites sites in Ethiopia, and historians agree that's a solid early point in the game's timeline.
It is believed that Arab traders actually helped spread the game widely across Africa and the world later on. The word Mancala itself actually comes from the Arabic nakala, which means to move or to transfer, which is kind of fitting for the game actually.
That's true, but Mancala isn't just ancient, it's also alive. It's alive.
It's alive.
Well, yeah, in many African societies, it holds spiritual and social meaning.
Yeah, that's right. Some cultures play Mancala at night during rituals like funerary wakes, believing it distracts or honors the spirits.
Yeah, and among the Ball of Ivory Coast, women play versions of the game to influence their future children's gender. If you want boy twins, you play against two men, for example, or something like that. I mean, how great is that?
Well, I also got the Fon girls in Dahomey. Mancala is part of a coming of age ceremony there when they first get their menstrual cycle.
And some Aladian and Ball communities have used nighttime Mancala games to choose tribal leaders, believing the ancestor helped decide the outcome.
Yeah, so is Mancala the oldest game ever? Well, probably not, but it is definitely one of the richest and most widespread. It has deeply rooted history, and that's why we decided to talk about it first.
And actually, it's still going strong today as well. In West Africa and the Caribbean, Owari is a favorite. And in southern India, the version called Palankuzi is still played at homes and at festivals.
So, if Mancala might be the oldest game, but probably isn't, what is the oldest game we know of?
Well, that kind of depends on what you mean by no. It's one thing to find, date, and identify objects as game pieces, but it's another thing entirely to know how the game was played. Rules don't fossilize easily. Some of the oldest gaming artifacts we've found date back more than 5,000 years.
Yeah, so one example of one of these more than 5,000-year-old gaming artifacts we found comes from Basur Hoyuk, and that's a Bronze Age burial site in what's now Turkey. So here, archaeologists uncovered dice and 49 small game pieces, and they were sculpted into shapes of pigs, dogs, pyramids, and some simple shapes as well. And they were differently colored, like red, green, blue, black, and white. So it definitely feels like, this could be a game, right?
Yeah, but it's that kind of thing that's beautiful, mysterious, but totally unknown in terms of how they were used.
Exactly. There's like so many games we found, which are likely games, but we have no idea how they were played or what their name is. So yeah, games are old. And board games seem to be the oldest kind we found with any consistency.
Which brings us to Senet, one of the very first ancient games where we not only have the boards, but clues about how it may have been played were found as well. So Senet is as intriguing as it is old. Like Mancala, it's a two-player board game, but far more connected to ancient Egyptian culture and clearer origins.
Yeah, that's right. So hold on to your seats because the oldest fragments of Senet boards date to around 3100 BC. And that's over 5,000 years ago, too. And that's centuries before the pyramids. And it's actually just after Egyptians began to write, just to give you an idea of how truly old this is, even for ancient Egyptian standards. The oldest complete Senet board, though, we can definitely identify as being Senet as well. That was buried with a man named Hesi Ra around 2620 BC. His tomb even shows painted scenes of people playing the game. And fun fact, by the way, Hesi Ra's title is debated in history as well. He was either the Great One of the Ivory Cutters or, wait for it, Great One of the Dentists. making him possibly the world's first named dentist. It's just how Egyptian writing used to work, I think. Sometimes it can have like a double meaning. This time we had to guess, was he a dentist or was he an ivory cutter?
Wait a second, isn't that actually kind of the same thing?
Well, see, this is probably why they use the same symbol to mean both things, right?
Yeah, it's like teeth, ivory, I don't know.
What if it was actually like a double profession? So, like, the guy who cuts the ivory just so happens to also
Be a
cut your root
dentist.
canal.
Yeah, what if people are like, hey, you cut ivory, you probably can do my teeth too. It's the same thing, right?
Absolutely. Sure.
I have no idea, by the way. It's just, possibility, right? But yeah, Senet was incredibly popular in Egypt. It wasn't just for the elite either, but the elite certainly embraced it. Boards were found in Tutankhamun's tomb, and paintings show Queen Nefertari, wife of Ramses II, playing Senet in the 13th century BCE. It even appears in the Book of the Dead, Egypt's spiritual guidebook to the afterlife. This game wasn't just a pastime, it became a cultural icon.
So then let's get into it. So how was Senet played? Well, let's have a look at the board first. So Senet boards were usually made of wood, but some were carved from ivory or even faience, which is like this really glossy, glassy, ceramic, blue-green looking material. It's really beautiful.
Oh, sounds great.
Oh, it is. You should honestly have a look. It is really, really pretty.
Okay.
The board has 30 squares, and they're arranged in 3 rows of 10 squares. Each player had a set of 5 pawns, and the goal was to move them all across the board and into the final square.
The movement wasn't determined by dice, but by throwing 4 sticks. Each had a flat side and a rounded side. You'd count how many flat sides landed face up to determine your move. And to be fair, this is kind of one of the variants of dice anyway. There are so many variants of like ancient dice, and I feel like we need to talk about dice, but probably not in this episode.
Probably in a different episode, yeah.
Yeah,
But
because
definitely
there's
we
so
saw so
much.
many, yeah.
Yeah.
Knucklebone dice, pyramid-shaped dice.
Yeah, there are like so many variants of them, and the history of dice actually warrants its own episode. But back to this one with the stick shaped dice. Basically, if all 4 landed round side up, that's basically becoming a 6. Weirdly enough, you couldn't roll a 5 no matter how you roll it, basically. And some historians think that's on purpose because the number 5 had specific symbolic meaning in Egypt.
Yeah, so we won't bore you with every single rule, but Senet was surprisingly sophisticated. The final 5 squares, they had special functions, like blocking, sending pawns back, or requiring a specific dice throw in order to progress, making for a dramatic endgame, I imagine. These were all like very much at the very end of the board already.
That said, though, most of what we know is based on conjecture, historians piecing together clues from boards, texts, and art. The game fell out of use by around 400 BC near the rise of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, so we don't know exactly how it was played. There was no instructions left over for this ancient game, but it's this is like kind of like our best guess we from what we know based on all the art and the text and the pieces that we found. At first, Senet was probably just a game, but as time went on, especially during Egypt's New Kingdom era, it took on quite a religious significance as well. It became symbolic for the soul's journey through the afterlife, and playing Senet was, in a sense, kind of a ritual of rebirth. Egyptian gods like Ma'at, which was the god of order, Thoth, which was the god of wisdom and like a few other things, and Osiris, the god for the afterlife, they were often associated with the game of Tenet, and winning a game was seen as bringing you good fortune or even favor from the gods. And it very much reflects that Egyptian culture of fate and divine order. And the word Senet roughly means passing, as in passing through the game board or passing through the afterlife.
And yes, some boards were insanely luxurious, like you said before, defiant styles, inlaid into furniture with hidden storage drawers. So yeah, these weren't just games, they were work of art. Playing Senate today connects you with thousands of years of human history. It's humbling to think about. Same mechanics, same motivation, just separated by 5 millennia.
So now that we got Senet out the way, let's talk about the next game in our journey through ancient games. One with probably the most awesome name of all, the Royal Game of
Nice.
We actually don't know what it was called back in the day, 2600 BC to be exact. That's over 4600 years ago again. Gosh, that is so far ago. This game again is older than the pyramids and older than writing in many parts of the world. It's crazy to think about.
The game was rediscovered in the 1920s by English archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley during his excavation of the Royal Cemetery of Ur.
Can you imagine unearthing the remnants of a board game made of wood, shell, and lapis lazuli? It's basically the ancient version of finding a glowing treasure chest.
Yeah, somehow kind of real Jumanji vibes here. There's a great write up of the excavation on the British Museum website. We'll leave a link in the description if you want to give that a read. The game's popularity spread far and wide, from Iraq to Egypt, Syria, Crete, and even as far as Sri Lanka. Boards were even found in Tutankhamun's tomb.
Yeah, so the Royal Game of wasn't just like a local pastime, it was a real ancient blockbuster. So for a long time, no one knew how this game was actually played. This was until Irving Finkel, the British museum curator and ancient game detective and real-life Dumbledore, stepped in.
Yes, Sir Irving deciphered the rules from a 2,000-year-old cuneiform tablet. I don't know how he did it.
We struggle with IKEA instructions, and we both speak several foreign languages as well. This man cracked ancient Sumerian like it was nothing.
Yes, so the tablet was found in Babylon in the 1880s and had both text instructions and a diagram of the game board, but yeah, I would have struggled anyway.
Anyway, let's have a look at the gameplay then. So thankfully we know how it was played, right? It's a two-player race, similar to Senet again, and each player has 7 drafts-like pieces, and the goal is to get them all off the board before your opponent does.
So the board shape is a little bit strange, you might say. Imagine 2 chunky rectangles connected by a skinny little bridge of 2 squares in the middle. Sort of like if a chessboard had a waist. That's probably how you can imagine it. But yeah, some squares are safe zones. Others let you boot the opponent's piece off. It's not just luck, there is room for strategy in the game.
Yeah, and the dice? 4 tiny pyramid-shaped dice. Really cool looking. And you can actually go and see the original excavated Royal Game of board on display in the British Museum, usually in room 56. And if you're lucky, maybe Irving Finkel himself will challenge you to a match. He's known to do that from time to time, you know.
Unlike Senet, though, Ur seems to have had multiple versions and evolved over time, though the core idea remained. No one's 100% sure why the game disappeared, but one theory is that it eventually morphed into or got outshined by backgammon.
What we do know is that eventually this game too would take on superstitious dimensions. It was played by all social classes, and versions of the game have been found that give vague predictions of a player's real-life future if they land on certain places, such as, you will find a friend, you will become powerful like a lion, or you will draw fine beer.
Sounds like your kind of game, JP, but either way, it had a multi-millennial run, which is more than we can say for most games today.
I mean, Tetris is doing well, but I guess it hasn't hit the 4,000-year mark yet.
Yeah, that's true. I guess it's not even a century old yet. So far, we've been to ancient Egypt, wandered through Mesopotamia, and now we're heading even further east. Far east, even. The ancient games we've talked about, like Senet and the Royal Game of Ur, were lost for centuries. But not this one. Not Go.
Go might just be the oldest game that is still being played to this very day. Its true origins are actually still a mystery, but legends say it was created in China over 4,000 years ago, perhaps even as a teaching tool by the ancient Emperor Yao. While the exact date is up for debate, we do know that Go was mentioned in texts as early as the 4th century BC, even in writings linked to Confucius, who called it a game worthy of a gentleman.
The oldest physical evidence, a broken Go board fragment, was found in Shaanxi province, China, dating back to around 200 BC, which means people have been playing Go since before the Roman Empire existed. That's kind of wild to think of it.
So, what does Go actually look like?
So, if you've ever seen a large 19 by 19 grid covered in black and white stones, that's Go. One player gets 181 black stones and will go first. Wait, that's pretty confusing.
They
Will
will
go first
go first.
in the
On
game of Go.
Yes.
Yeah,
And who's going second?
it's the other one that gets 180 white stones. So it's an abstract strategy game, a bit like chess, if chess had fewer rules but way more possibilities.
Yeah, that's a good way of comparing the two. So, despite the minimalist look of Go compared to chess, Go is way more complex. So, the rules, there's fundamentally two, although that's kind of lying. It fundamentally, there's two rules. One, a stone must either connect to another friendly stone or be part of a group that does. And number two, you can't repeat the exact same board position from the previous move because this prevents an infinite loop happening where, I put down a stone, you remove that stone, I put the stone back in the same position, and it repeats like that over and over again. But yeah, it's avoiding that basically.
Yeah, they might sound like simple rules, but the strategy, layers upon layers. The objective is to control territory by surrounding empty spaces and capturing your opponent's stones. So yeah, it's kind of like chess, but with more zen and menace.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this complexity. Don't just take it from us. The number of possible board positions in Go is around 2 times 10 to the power of 170, which is said that that is more than the number of atoms in the observable universe.
That's definitely a lot. So Go is so complex that AI even struggled with it for much longer than it did with chess. You might have heard the first time a computer beat a reigning world chess champion was in 1997 when IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov.
That's right, but what about Go? It wasn't until 2016 that AlphaGo, developed by Google DeepMind, beat the Korean Lee Sedol, one of the world's top players at Go. Even now, top humans can still challenge the best Go AIs because Go isn't actually just about logic, it's about intuition, pattern recognition, and creative play.
Historically, Go wasn't seen as just a game, it was a path to wisdom and moral character. Emperors, generals, scholars, the ancient elite all played Go. It was one of the four cultivated arts of classical Chinese tradition, alongside with calligraphy, music, and painting. And from the 1600s onwards, Japan had officially Go schools supported by the government.
Yeah, that really makes my high school chess club look a little bit underfunded.
That's a bit sad.
All right, so one last game to wrap up our ancient tour, and you could say we've saved one of the most mysterious for last.
This game is from Shahr-i Sokhta, which means burnt city in Persian. That's not what the city was originally called. We have no idea what that was. The name was given by archaeologists because this ancient place, dating back to 3500 BC, was destroyed by multiple fires throughout its lifetime.
But despite its tragic fate, the site is packed with fascinating discoveries. There's a goblet found that shows sequential artwork, essentially the earliest known animation ever.
And they also uncovered what might be the oldest artificial eye, worn by a woman likely for most of her life.
But of course, what really catches our attention is the board game. So it's not quite the oldest game ever, with it dating back to around 2600 BC. That would be just after Senet and but this is the oldest complete game board ever found.
The game was found in 1977, buried in the lavish grave of a high status individual. By the way, JP, if you go before me, should I bury you with your Switch 2 birthday present?
No, you can bury me with GTA 6, so maybe future archaeologists will finally figure out how long it took to release.
Until you basically pass.
Yeah.
Fair, okay. Seems like everyone's waiting for a very long time, but hey.
Yeah. But back to Shahr-i Sokhta. The game board, which you can, by the way, have a look at if you take a look at our artwork for this episode, has 20 circular spaces, and they're kind of arranged like a curved snake. So they're not squares like the other board games we've looked at today. It looks surprisingly similar to the royal game of with its two pieces in the middle that are connecting the two other big pieces, like a waist bridge, if you will. And along with it, they also found 27 geometric pieces and 4 dice. But unlike the royal game of we didn't have any written rules to work from to understand how this game was played.
But that all changed in 2024, so very recent actually, when Sam Jalver, a computer scientist from the University of Essex, and archaeologist Hossein Moradi decided to reverse engineer the game. Using computer modeling, AI, and comparison to other games of the period, they tested out which rules would actually be fun to play.
Their algorithm explored probability based roles for the pieces, aiming for originality and replayability. And after testing with 50 modern players, they said, "We can't know for sure how the game was played, but our version fits the board, the dice, and the pieces. And, most importantly, it's fun."
Honestly, that might be the best summary of any game ever. We don't know exactly how it works, but it's fun and it makes sense. So, fair enough.
Fair enough, that's right. And what a ride. Honestly, researching this episode turned out to be much more eye opening than I expected. What about you, Gabby?
Yeah, it's fun. Definitely. I mean, I spent my time digging a lot more into the history of dice, which we decided not to use. But, you know, we will definitely talk about that in future episodes. But it's definitely eye opening.
100%. Definitely want to talk about the dice. I also feel like I've walked away with a new appreciation for like the true significance of games, like how deeply intertwined it is with, humans becoming of age, with, our imagination turning play into rules, into games, and perhaps learning a little bit about being cultured in the long run.
Some of these games might have been humanity's first real taste of abstract thought. And sure, there must be game even older than what we've uncovered so far. But if these early boards and pieces are anything to go by, they played a far deeper role in our development than we give them credit for.
Yeah, we can safely say we'd love to continue digging here at Gaming History Club because there's just so much more to explore. Like the games of ancient Greece and Rome we haven't even talked about. So my philosopher homies, Plato and Aristotle, definitely had opinions about games. And of course, we still need to cover chess as well, one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
secret pleasures.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be an interesting episode. So, if you want to hear more about Ancient Games Player One, let us know by dropping us a message on our website, gaminghistory.club. And as usual, new episodes of Gaming History Club are released every other Wednesday, so make sure you subscribe and follow us on our social media. We're on Instagram and Facebook as Gaming History Club.
Come back in a couple of weeks, Player One, when we take a deep dive of one of our gaming history heroes, Jerry Lawson, who, among many other things, also gave us the first interchangeable game cartridges. See ya.